Hello everyone, no respawns here. Hope you're doing well and having a grand week. So this is Disco Elysium, which is a game that I've kind of it's been absorbing my life for the last past week or so. And I wanted to do a guide focusing on getting started with the game, specifically focused on going through all of the various skills that you have and kind of explaining in a bit more of a experience-based way what they do and how they affect the game. This is going to be more or less completely spoiler-free. I'm not going to tell anything of the storyline at all. I'm just going to kind of allude to examples of what kind of happens with those skills. And what I will do is also play a little bit of the opening game as well. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the game at all, can kind of see what I mean and how those skills interact with the world around you. So those who haven't played or heard of Disco Elysium, it is a very hyper-faithful role-playing game. It's kind of like top-down isometric, but with a point-and-click interaction, and it's hugely focused on player choice and the kind of mental state of your character, which is decided by your skills and your choices. So you start as a police officer who's lost their memory, or detective to be exact, and you're a bit crazy, and well, you'll see. So I'm going to start a new game. You get character archetypes, so you get 4 main stats: Intellect, Psyche, Physique, and Motorics, and they govern certain skill archetypes. You can pick one of these if you like. I'd recommend creating your own just because it gives you a little bit more customization and a bit more of a feel for... You just feel a bit more connected to your character. So that's what we're going to do, and also this allows me to go through the skills. So I'm just going to revert these to 0, and then I'm going to next. You don't have to confirm your skills yet. So basically, these are all of the skills that you have. Now, the way this game works is each skill has active and passive skill checks. So, for example, let me just put them all to 3 for a sec. It's probably easier, actually. This is the most boring bit. This is the most boring character you can make. But what I mean by that is, dependent on what's happening in the conversation or where I'm walking around. For example, if my perception is quite high, I'll notice things, and I'll get a chance to either comment on it myself, or my perception, the little voice which governs perception, will identify that thing. It'll also mean this, for example, as a great example. So a high enough perception will enable me to spot a hidden floorboard in a certain area of the game, which then I can find a thing. If my perception isn't high enough, I just will not notice it at all. And that's quite cool. So we'll start from the top. So these are the intellect skills. They're pretty kind of almost... They make sense where they are. So intellect is about your mental capacity. So if you want to be a Sherlock Holmes kind of character, this is the bunch of skills you want to invest time in. So you've got logic. Logic is kind of one of the more... It's these skills you use the most. These top 2 rows, actually, are the ones you use the most. Logic is logic. So it does give you a description of the skills as well. So you'll just kind of piece together puzzles. And so it means when you're talking with someone, you'll be able to... It'll work with other skills quite well, but you'll be able to piece together certain events, for example. It is a great example. It combines quite well with visual calculus. And it's one of those skills that gets used a lot. And it's always good to have high logic. Encyclopedia is one of the more active skills. Some of the skills are more active than others as well. That's fine. Logic is one of those ones that it's useful, but you maybe isn't as active as some others. It's still perpetually there, but you're like, compared to something like Encyclopedia. Now, if you have very high Encyclopedia, what will happen is anytime someone mentions anything, you'll come up with this paragraph telling you what it is. And it's almost like your brain talking to yourself. And it becomes really handy because you'll be able to identify things and then you can mention them in conversation. So you'll almost know things before people tell you. Or you'll have... It would be like as if every time someone was speaking to you, you'd pause for a second and go Google something. That's pretty much what Encyclopedia does, except it gives you a very kind of academic answer. It also notice where it says here, at high levels, it means that... certain skills at massively high levels will actually start having punitive effects on the character. It does, if you want to go into it, it does tell you, for example, Encyclopedia at high levels will give you information to an overwhelming degree. To be honest, Encyclopedia is one of those ones that having at high level probably isn't going to be as negative as, say, some of the others, which we'll get to. So rhetoric is a skill you're going to be using a lot, which is your ability to talk to people. As I said, so you're the rigorous intellectual discourse. It's worth noting that there are several discourse, well, actually they're all discourse level skills, but rhetoric is the more conventional one. So that means that you can convince people, you're very good at arguing. And what the way rhetoric will work is it will suggest answers for you. And it will also slightly change the answers as well. So you'll get a prompt to say a thing, and then rhetoric, if you don't have high rhetoric, the prompt will be a little bit different anyway. And it's an ambulance going by my flat, appropriate for the kind of game we're playing. And it will effectively just, you'll get a prompt to say this effectively, or suggest saying this kind of line of route. It goes well with things like suggestion and also volition. A lot of these skills work together. Some skills are more fun. The others, these three are handy but not fun, I guess is the better way of putting it. We'll get to the fun skill. So drama is the first fun skill. So drama is very good for spotting where someone's lying. In terms of just pure detective work, having high drama, you'll be able to know when someone's effectively acting, when they're pretending. And it's quite a handy skill to have. But also drama affects other things as well. Your ability to lie to people, or your ability to be a bit more extravagant. Again, a lot of the skills don't have a direct... So drama, as I said, it treats the world as a stage. So for example, drama might not... in terms of a detective, it'll enable you to kind of pick holes in arguments and that kind of things. But it'll also enable you to be a bit more flamboyant and do kind of flamboyant things, which is quite fun. Speaking of flamboyant, conceptualization is a very cool skill. It's one of those ones that it's probably, when you first look at this, it's probably those ones you can easily overlook. But conceptualization enables you to think broader. Yeah, it says here, conceptualization makes you go big, perhaps too big. So some degree of conceptualization enables you to see a kind of less conventional way of looking at things. And it's one of those skills I'm tempted to kind of max out, because of the fact that really high conceptualization means that you're going to kind of see things in a much broader and possibly over the top and a little bit out there kind of way. It's a very fun skill. Visual calculus is the Sherlock Holmes skill. So a great example of early game visual calculus, which I will show you as long as I don't fail the test, is you can examine a broken window in your room, and it kind of it changes the view a little bit, so it's like your brain going into overdrive. You can also use it to, for example, there's a part where you get to see where some tire tracks are going, and it changes the view, and it enables you to really kind of get into it's the cooler, more traditional kind of detective stuff. Said at high levels. Yeah, so it's one of those ones. I've not really had this one very high before, like high enough, not high enough that I've started to see the negatives of it, shall we say, but it would be an interesting one to do. I'm probably, when I do the demonstration, I'm probably going to max out potentially both of these and just put these two down to 1 or something. Right, so those are the intellect ones. As you can see, they follow a certain, some of them are, you could see how, for example, drama might fit into psych, but they kind of, there's more boring intellect. Each skill has a few boring skills and a few weird in terms of the stats. So, like, for example, drama and conceptualization are the weirder ones, and the other ones are a bit more traditional. So, psych is a fun one. So, psych is a bit more your mental state. Psych is probably, I can't decide. These two are probably the ones I go in high, but psych is useful. Right, so first thing about psych is you have volition. Volition is you playing boring. But I don't mean boring in a sense of, like, that's not a good way to play. It's just you're going to be a bit more of a good cop, right? And it tends to, with high levels of volition, which is where it gets quite fun, which is why having some points of volition is good, is it argues with the other voices in your head. So, for example, your conceptualization will be going off on one, talking about big things and massive things. This is great. And then your volition voice in your head will, no, that's stupid. Don't be dumb. And it's quite a handy skill to have. It also means that your character's morale is much higher, so that means you won't break down. But also, because you've got high volition anyway, it means you don't lose morale. It's the mind version of the endurance skill. Volition, as I said, at high levels, you'll be hyper sane, and it keeps you normal. It's a bit of a party pooper, and at low levels, you tend to be quite unstable. Right, Inlaid Empire, there are two skills. Inlaid Empire and Shivers, which are kind of... These two together are kind of two sides of... They do the same sort of thing, which is you'll start to have... Things will start to get a bit weird, bordering on almost magical to an extent. It kind of... There are quite a few skills which change the tone of the game. Half-Light is another one that does that. But with Inlaid Empire, for example, I'm gonna see if I can have this high enough. In my current save, I started talking to my Thai, and my Thai started to have voices. And you start to talk things in a bit more of a... The world's a bit more magical, a bit more paranormal with High Inlaid Empire, and it's quite good fun. Empathy is a really handy skill to have. A bit more traditional one, you just basically understand how people are feeling. And so while you're talking with someone, you'll get prompts to tell you, this person's hiding something, or this person's upset but they're holding things back. And like with rhetoric and drama, it will prompt you to say things. There are dialogue options with all of these skills which are massively close behind if your empathy isn't high enough, or the relevant skill isn't high enough. So it does change the kind. You'll be a bit more understanding when you talk to people, which is quite... Yeah, there we go. Yeah, with low empathy, you'll be an ungainly beast. And there are punitive effects to having some of these skills low. Now, Authority is... Authority is one of those ones that I've already had before, where it does slightly mess up your dialogue, because you become a bit of a dick, basically. Yeah, so there we go. A perceived slight can send you into knee-breaking mode. So it's a bit of a... It's obviously a more traditional cop skill. There are quite a few tests in the game where you'll be talking to someone and you need to establish your authority, and it's very handy to have. However, I found it's been a bit more negative in a way than positive, but I don't know whether that's bad. So, for example, as it says, even at like 4 or 5, you start getting a little bit touchy with people. So you'll get prompts, and even to the point where you'll be forced down dialogue options where you won't have an out that isn't authority. This happens with a lot of the skills, by the way, because of the fact that your character feels that their authority is being challenged. So, handy, but also... Esprit de Corps. This is a great skill to have, and I highly recommend, even if you start it with it low, get it up as high as quick as possible, like to level 4. The reason being is... This enables you to talk to other police officers, and you kind of understand their dialogue options and their body language a lot more. And it's kind of like, it's like winking at each other. The reason why this is really handy, and I think it makes for a better experience, is the fact is that you have a partner throughout this entire game called Kim. And if you have this up high, you feel like BFFs. It's almost like, imagine like reading a book and... the book describes the body language that two characters have together. It would be like taking that away, and then the conversation comes a little bit more one-sided, that there's not as much connection between the two characters. This, I initially had it quite low, and I started putting points in. I've actually started a new game, but when I first did it, I had it quite low, and then as I started putting more points in it, because I saw a couple of tests pass, and I was like, oh, like passive tests, so it, I saw these things come up, and it started to like, the bond between me and my partner was really high, so it's a really good one to have. Suggestion is, yeah, it's soft power approach, so it's kind of the opposite of authority. Good, yeah, so it's a bit more of, it's less direct form of things like rhetoric and authority. Suggestion, I've not had suggestion up very high, so when I see it, it's a bit more of ones where it's a bit more overt. But again, with all of these skills, I can see that one being quite handy. But yeah, it's more of a soft power. So, for example, being a bit more charming in conversation and a bit more... As it says, you can be a bit more like a salesman. So it's less kind of, using your authority or being... Rhetoric is a bit more of an intellectual conversation. Authority is a bit more, forceful conversation. And empathy... And then suggestion is a bit more... It's smoother way. So rhetoric is, I guess, your traditional charisma skill. Very handy to have, but I've never had it that high. I'm actually probably going to put a few more points there on my current game. So, now these are physique ones. I will say that these two stats you can probably have lower without suffering as much. But at the same time, there's always a but. You can... these two will be used more than these two. However, there are lots of things that... There's more passive skill checks with these that you just won't notice, rather than active skill sets where you feel you'll lose out, is the better way of wording it. I'll go through these all three, but a good one is reaction speed, is one that it's... There's loads of things where you can use reaction speed, but it's also really useful for questions. So you'll be like talking to someone, and then an idea will come to your mind, and I'm going to have this low, and then highlight a point where I distinctly remember reaction speed coming into effect. But it's quite useful for questioning people and kind of going, ah, yeah, and saying something off the bat. As I said, there's always two sides to the coin with these skills. Very, very cool. Right, anyway. Also, this is going to be a much longer video than I thought, but it's fine. All right, so in Physique, endurance is the body version of volition. I would argue endurance is significantly less important than volition. I've not really had it up very... I think my last one had it on 3, and it's handy. I said, it's just more like your health of your character. I guess endurance probably very useful if you start doing more dumb shit, is the better of looking at it. High endurance will probably help you if you want to be a little bit more of a crazy cop, because you're probably going to hurt yourself quite a bit. But because I'm a boring cop, as the game told me, I was the sorriest cop ever, because I liked the idea that my character was putting the pieces of their life back together rather than, going deeper. But yeah, that's endurance. Pain threshold, again, really low use skill. But again, it's one of those things, it's low use because I probably haven't had it up very high. It's always, remember, there are loads and loads and loads and loads of passive tests and things that it won't even tell you that you've passed or failed. Some of them they will, some of them they won't. And I imagine high pain threshold. It's also really handy when you're talking about murder victims and other people's pain. It kind of works a bit with empathy. Physical instrument is one I did have high, and quite handy that. There are lots of instances where being a little bit, fighting with someone or doing anything physical is quite handy. It will make you a little bit more of a macho defensive guy, which is where the dialogue options change, which is quite funny. So, for example, high physical instrument and high authority makes you a big tough cop who is maybe a little bit touchy. A great example of physical instrument was you tend to find your masculinity challenged quite a lot. There was like a part where I was examining a painting, and it was a person with a bit more of a genderless hairstyle, and my physical instrument, like my empathy and my inlaid and drama especially, were like, oh, that's really cool that you could pull that off, and my physical instrument was like, what? No, that's not manly enough for me, and it's quite funny. Electrochemistry, you will see a lot. If you want to go down further deep into the pit, electrochemistry is your drugs, your excess, sex, beer, smoking, all those things. If you have high electrochemistry, you won't be able to resist these urges. It will force you down these roads. At mid-level, you'll just get prompted by it a lot. But also it's understanding when someone's on drugs and therefore kind of understanding how that's affecting them. It's worth noting that drugs in this game do buff all of these stats. So, for example, I can... there's a couple of, which I'll get to, there's some mental mind palace type things you can do, which give you certain buffs, which then can be buffed with drugs. So, for example, you could take loads of drugs and buff your psyche straight up. So, drugs can make you do everything in excess, including skills. So, effectively, if you start doing loads of drugs, you'll have much higher of these skills because your brain is just in overdrive, but there'll obviously be negative effects of you just kind of, falling apart a little bit. Cool skill to have. I didn't do it because I, RPing a guy putting his life together. So I was all straight and narrow in regards to drugs, but I was a bit more esoteric there. Shivers is a very cool, similar to Inlight Empire. Shivers is a cool skill, but it gives you a lot of background info, but I would also say that it doesn't necessarily it only is you thinking to yourself rather than necessarily... Inlaid Empire is quite active in conversation. Shivers is more, you sense things, but it's quite cool. And again, it's one of those paranormal skills in a lot of ways. So, for example, with high shivers, you will just sit there thinking to yourself of the voice of the city. So you'll be able to kind of hear what someone, you know, you'll be sitting there thinking, and you'll be like, oh, I can think of, I can sense on the other side of the city there's someone walking down a pier, and something happens. That kind of stuff. It's like a kind of cop intuition, but in a very paranormal kind of way. It's quite cool. Half-Light is actually one of those ones I haven't had up high, but apparently, I read on Reddit, it has quite a cool effect. So Half-Life is your kind of fight or fright response, and you'll be able to sense when other people are. There'll be instances where it prompts you like there's danger ahead. And as someone on Reddit described, they had Half-Light up really high, and basically your character's constantly in fear and terrified of things, and they actually quite liked it because the fact that it made... It sets the tone. There's lots of skills. The entire tone of your game will feel different if you have certain skills up high. I said, Esprit de Corps, there's another siren going by my house. Esprit de Corps, for example, will make you feel like it's a bit more of a cop drama, which I really like, especially your partner. Half-Light will make it feel like you're constantly in danger, and that's very, very cool. Right, last set, and then this is going to be a longish video, but I'll try and be quick when we get to the... because I don't want to spoil too much of the game for you. So these are your more kind of motorics, so your hand-eye coordination, and I guess more the more subtle parts of your body, I guess. It's your psyche is to your logic, this is to your physical. So hand-eye coordination, bit more of a straightforward skill. There is a part where you have to shoot a gun, makes it better. I've never really done it very high. It'll be interesting. It said that high hand-eye coordination compel you to take a shot even if it's not the best approach. It doesn't mean physically taking a shot. It means like quickly snap. It's a skill I've not really had up very high. There are a lot of sirens going by my house. I guess it fits the game, but still, god damn it. I've not had it up massively high. I've only had it for active skill checks where I've noticed this really. So there was a part where I had to shoot a gun, and hand-eye coordination made that successful, which is quite cool. Perception is a very active skill, so it's your ability to see things. High perception, so there are quite a few skills that will, as you're walking around, and I'll demonstrate, you'll give... It's kind of like very similar to Encyclopedia, actually. It'll give you loads of extra information on your surroundings. So Encyclopedia will give you more, you know, kind of encyclopedic information. So dictionary, this is what this is. That person was a famous person. Perception will enable you to sense your surroundings a lot more. So you'll smell, you'll hear things, you'll notice details. Really handy to have. I didn't have it as high as I could have when I started, and then as I got it higher, my character was constantly noting details. Really, really cool. That's it. At low levels, you're going to miss stuff. At high levels, at high levels, again, it's with Encyclopedia at high and Perception at high, I can't really see any negatives with it. You just notice loads of stuff. It'll just spam up your dialogue options with loads of bits of detail. Reaction speed is, again, the one I mentioned. It's not only reaction speed for, like, physical reaction speed, but also reaction speed in questioning. It's a surprisingly useful one. There was when I restarted, and I actually had these down to all 2. So I went, which I might do again, which was 4-4-2-2. There was a person I questioned at the start, you talked to, who if my reaction speed was lower than when I did the first time, and I didn't get all the dialogue options with her, because of the fact, which provides me loads of backgrounds to the world I'm in, and you start off with no memory, so that's very handy. And so yeah, it's really useful questioning. I've never had high enough to be negative. Yes, it's high strung, overly alert. I imagine this would work quite well with Half-Light. I think it would make things a bit more on edge. Savoir-faire is it's a weird one. It's more active, so I haven't really found that any passive skills with Nate Savoir-faire have been very handy. However, again, that's probably because I didn't have it very high. Stealthing, smooth stuff. So, for example, a great example is you have to pay for stuff at the start, and you can sneak away, and a kind of like, no time for this. It's a weird one. I've not really had it very high, but it's more about, yeah, like, if I can kind of go to the overview a bit more. Yeah, it's kind of being smooth, is the way I look at, like, a smooth cop. But I've never really been. I've been more of a thinky cop, basically. Interfacing, very handy. Machines and stealing and taking stuff and using stuff, basically. Interfacing is surprisingly useful for dialogue options because of the fact that you understand the mechanical nature of things. But it will also prompt you to, as a great example, if you don't have high enough interfacing, there's a pair of gloves that you can't get really early on in the start. They're actually not very good gloves, they're like these gardening gloves. But in the same vein, it's one of those ones that I imagine I could probably have higher, because firstly made this my signature skill. I didn't use it as much as I'd like. So, handy. If you want to steal a lot of stuff, interfacing is really good. But because I was playing a good cop, I decided not to use it so much. And finally, composure. Composure is really handy. There will be a few places in the game, shall we say, where high composure is the difference between you breaking down or holding it together. And it also enables you, high composure enables you to see when someone else is breaking. And it's really, really useful if you're talking to someone on where to push them. So, for example, if I have high enough composure, I can see when someone's snapping, and I know when to push and when to not. It works so really, really well with these other skills. Right, so what I'm going to do, that took way longer than I was expecting, because I want to go into detail. We're going to do a high... let's do... Yeah, okay, let's do this. 4, 6, 1, 1. Right, and I'm going to set Inlaid Empire as my signature skill. So now I've got my Cerebral Esoteric skill. So I'm going to play just the opening building. It'll probably take me about 50, so this will be about a 40-minute video overall. And just to show you how things work. Obviously, spoilers for the first, like, 5 to 10 minutes of the game. But it's fine. Yeah, let's just jump straight into it, shall we? Such a good game. Such a good game. I love it so much.
There is nothing. Only warm primordial blackness. You're conscious ferments in it. No larger than a single grain of malt. You don't have to do anything anymore.
It's worth noticing as well, so this is the opening of the game, and when I first did this, I had no skill checks whatsoever. I probably will have a couple passive ones, which will be interesting to see, because even like this early on, it changed how I affected it, and I was quite surprised.
Ever, never, ever, never, ever, ever, baby. An inordinate amount of time passes. It is utterly void of struggle. No ex-wives are contained within it. Yes, it is. You got it, sweet brother. Nothing upon nothing upon nothing. Coming right up, sir. Smooth passage. Alright, nothing down to fuck all borough. Do you want me to upgrade that to a one-way?
I love that. Love that. This is some of the best writing I've ever experienced in the game as well. It is. They did not
the song of
pull any punches, shall we say?
Sweet and endless. But what is this? Somewhere in the sore, bloated man meat around you. A sensation. Like a fly to the ointment, your conscience sticks to it. The limbed and headed machine of pain and undignified suffering is firing up again. It wants to walk the desert, hurting, longing, dancing to disco music.
By the way, just in case, this is me blacked out right now. It does actually get to an actual game. See, there we go. With high enough volition, this is obviously a self-destructed spiral, and with high enough volition, see, I didn't know this check even existed. So when I started, my volition was quite low. I had 4 in, I think I had 4, 2, 3, 3 or something like that. It was a slightly boring start when I first played it, I'm not gonna lie. And so I never saw this check at all. But because high volition, my ability to kind of hold it together, suddenly I'm in this self-destructing spiral, and I can actually... And it gives me completely new dialogue options. I didn't have these last time. See? I am a champion.
Stench of liquor rises from your mouth, and with it, an ungodly headache. fiery streak penetrates your skull, trying to force your eyes open. It's a sound, a clarion call from hell.
So we go and see this example of the encyclopedia. A Coopius Kinema. So basically, I heard a car basically, it woke me up. I can't pronounce some of the words. Lovely. Right, so this is my lovely hotel room. Right, so this is how the world interacts. If I hold down tab, I can highlight the things that I can select. And currently, right now, I've just got to find my clothes. So I'm just going to... I'll have a look at that. See, this is a prompt. So this is a kind of senses prompt. So, again, perception, hearing. I hear a jingle. It's quite useful, actually. My hearing is... Because I've got that stat down to 1. I was surprised I'll be able to see those. So there we go. Because my perception's quite low, I'm not going to notice as many physical things, but it's fine because I just wanted to kind of go for a bit more of an extreme character. As you can see. So we've got 1, 1, but my psyche is super high, so this should make for a quite fun, silly start. So you can interact in... the colour of the circles is effectively what kind of skill is being used. So for example, this is a great first... So if my perception is high enough, I can fish out the cassette tape. But because my perception is so low, there's usually like an outline there in yellow. I can't even see it. That's because my perception is really low, which is quite cool. I'll take my shoe, well, one of my shoes. Don't worry, he stops carrying his head once you get out of here. You can interact with the mirror, which I'm going to do in a sec. I'm curious, actually. Again, just because I never had the perception so low, so I'd never... yeah, so basically you get, like, loads of clothes, and clothes have different stats. So your disco-ass blazer, white satin shirt. So the description of these fucking trousers is grim. They are someone's piss-soaked, cum-stained party pants. Very nice. So as you can see, my savoir-faire, my smoothness is very, very low, because I'm wearing jizz pants. My electrochemistry, because I'm wearing my jizz pants, is very high, so I get an extra stat. My esprit de corps for my disco-ass blazer. My suggestion, because obviously my stained, disgusting shirt. And my conceptualization is higher because of my white satin shirt. There is also my tie, which I'm quite excited to get. Now, be careful here. Now, my physical is very low. So there we go. This is an example of Inlaid Empire, which is a skill I've got, my signature skill, and how it's a bit more of a cerebral. This creature is your friend and wants to reattach you your neck. I didn't have Inlaid Empire very high at all when I started, and I'm going to turn the fan off, though, because my self-affair is very low, and I'm hypothetically going to hurt myself. I still could low. I'm going to quickly just take my... so I don't want to fail that. So I'm going to take my pants off. So I'm a bit smoother. So there we go. Hey, there we go. Warning, warning, the Techmaster. So your voices talk to each other as well. Right, I'm not going to turn the light on. Few things I'm not going to do. So this is my tie. So it gives me a bonus to my Inlaid Empire. So now my Inlaid Empire is 8, which is supremely high. And I'm quite curious, because I've never had it that high before, how it affects things. When I started a new game yesterday, I started talking to my tie. That made me giggle quite a little bit. So I'm going to take a look at my face, and we'll show a bit more of an active skills, ones that I should be able to pass. So I don't have any memory of who I am, and currently my my face is blurred out. Gorgeous. Superstar. Be because I'm a superstar. The game does judge the kind of dialogue options you choose, so you will get prompts, and it will try and like typecast the kind of cop that you are. So we'll bear that in mind. I got called the sorry cop. I think a lot of people get called the sorry cop, so I'm trying to be a bit more superstar-y. See, for example, so this is my volition, which is the kind of the smart side of my brain, and it's saying, look, I can't stop because it's neurological. So your volition is a bit volition as if you want to be a boring cop or a reliably good cop. That's what volition is for. But again, it's just like the kind of boring part of my brain going, shut up, it's fine. This is what superstars do. Superstardom. Check for pulse. Right, so these are 2 active checks. Now, these checks are in white, so they're highlighted in white, which means I can retry them if I raise a point into that stat. Now, it's worth being completely transparent in this game. What you can do is I can exit the mirror, save, and sort of reload until I try it again. The game doesn't punish you for doing that. If you want to do that, you can, but you don't have to do that. You can just raise the stat and then try it again. So I'm going to try and dig deep and locate the source of the expression. And I failed. It comes from a bad place somewhere in the past. That's all for now. There's no chance, but I'm going to try and attempt to stop the expression from happening. Oh, wow! That's rare. I just succeeded in a 3%. That's the most successful roll I've ever had. Usually it's a while until you can fix that. So now my expression's changed, so I'm just not doing the expression anymore. Wow. Right, let's get my other shoe, shall we? Let me demonstrate an example of visual calculus. I'm not going to do the whole of this building because it will take a while, so I'm going to do a little bit. Just to kind of give you an idea of the game, but I really don't want to split. Oh! Okay, so here's an example of perception. If my perception is high enough, I can examine that window. I can't examine the window, so we can't do visual calculus, which is lame. But at least can go get my shoe, which I know is outside, so it's fine. I'll try and show you some visual calculus. Right, see. Now, things in yellow, that means that's kind of like a perception skill. Evidently my perception is high enough that I can at least see that money. Let's go outside and get my other shoe. I'm going to talk to my tie. But again, like, to give you an idea, like, just through changing a couple of skills, I'm having a completely different experience to what I played the first time. I was able to expect the mirror. I was able to pick up that tape, expect the window rather. But also, when I'm playing this time, I'm having a bit more. My tie is my friend, and the chances are he'll actually start talking to them. So I've got these shoes now. These are really good because they add to your composure. Don't forget to take your shoes and put them back on. For whatever reason, it wasn't putting them on. But yeah, see, I've got an extra one to composure now, which is good. Cool. Right, so let's pop downstairs. And now my character will move normally. He won't walk around. Low perception is interesting because I'm just noticing now that my character is not noticing so many things. Which is interesting. Again, you're going to have to be punitive to an extent, but you do get a lot of chances to talk to people. So let's try and chat to this lady here. So I don't know who I am right now. Obviously, I know I'm a cop, but you know what I mean.
No. No. You're a police officer, sir?
So, for example, that was an answer I could only get from conceptualization. Because obviously I'm like, oh yeah, cool. I'm clearly like, you know, some kind of stripper called the officer.
I'm not. Unless you've been shitting us all this time. You've been here for 3 days. On official police business, no less. I couldn't say. In truth, so far, mostly drinking.
Not gonna try. I could do that, but it's a bit sleaze. And I'm not gonna spoil what happens, so. See, now, this is an example, right? So, because she made a slight joke about me being a police officer, my authority gets really defensive. Now, when I first played, I didn't have high authority, so I never got this dial up, so I can let it go, or I can kind of challenge her and let it go. Retreat. And your other voice gets annoyed at you.
Of course. Be careful, officer. They don't like the police around here.
Right, so in she goes. In a sec, and it shouldn't happen. There we go. Now, right here, if I had my reaction speed, it only needs about 3.
Goodbye.
I would have said, hey, wait a second, I want to ask you some questions. And that's just, again, like how the game changes and interacts with things. If my save of fair is a lot higher, I'm not saving my psychochemistry, electrochemistry, this one, I actually try and I get an option to get a cigarette. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to my partner and examine the room a little bit. I'm not going to talk to everyone. And then that's your partner, Kim. And then we'll leave it there. But I just kind of wanted to demonstrate how certain skills are affecting things. But I'm going to talk to Kim because I should have a good example of the Spirit de Corps thing, which is a great example. Also a wonderful... so this is where people do karaoke. And this is one of the... Right, okay. So this pops right here. So this is my inlaid empire. This is my my cerebral part of my brain, right? And this is how I get a new task, which is to sing karaoke. So my soul is immense, utterly. Exactly. I've decided with this one, in my other game anyway, I'm like completely agreeing with anything my conceptualization, my inlaid empire say. It's like, yep, I'm going to be a good cop, but I'm a very cerebral, slightly pretentious cop. Right, let's go talk to me partner then. So loads of things I can get. There are loads of items you can get as well, so there is money. And these are like healing items. Let's just talk to him. And then we'll see how the high... Kim's cool. So here we go, for example. This is the kind of stuff you get a lot. So it gives you an idea of the character, but also like body language, kind of things they're saying. And having a Spirit de Corps, at least at like level 4, but even higher, you and Kim become such like the coolest cop duo ever. But without it, you'll get none of that backstory. And I really like that kind of balance between things.
Hello, I'm Kim Kitsuragi, Lieutenant, Precinct 57. You must be from the 41st.
So for example, invent a name for yourself. So this is cool. I didn't realize this. This is awesome. That's cool. That never happened. So basically, you see it says a negative partial to the officer, right? So because I spoke to the lady upstairs and was like, oh, my name's the officer, it means I can get him to call me the officer. But it sounds a bit rude, but I'm going to try it. Oh, I succeeded. Okay. So currently right now, I don't actually have a... You could even pass it. You don't actually have a name. So I think you can eventually invent a new name. I was boring and found out my original name. Just call me... Actually, no, 1 second.
Okay, then. It looks like we had a little scheduling error on Sunday. Saturday too, actually. Have you had time to talk to the manager here? Then we should ask him for a rundown of the area. Get me up to speed. I understand the scene is out back, right? It also wouldn't hurt to assure him the police are finally here. In full force, I mean. Have you mapped out the initial interviews? Right. And the interviews? At the 57th, we like to prepare an initial list of persons of interest, and then just skim the surface. Prepare the field, get to know the players. You don't do that? Good. But even if you haven't, we'll have time for that after we take a look at the coroner's case. Have you removed the dead body on the tree. Sure, but did you take it down from the tree? So the body is still in the tree.
As an example of empathy as well, and how you kind of... It works a lot well with him, spirit to corpse with him, because you kind of understand what he's thinking.
Where it has been hanging for 7 days straight. We should go there as soon as we are done talking to the owner.
I'm curious then, because basically I've always had logic very high. I'm pretty sure if your logic isn't high enough, then you... Oh, it says trivial, so probably. But basically, you... If it was on, like, 1, you would actually not be able to realise you don't have a badge. Also, from what I've heard, if your, like, intelligence is basically 0, you're really dumb and can't understand many things, which is quite funny. Right, let's just talk to this guy here, and then we'll leave it there, and then you're going to get a taste of what the game's like.
Mr.
Yes.
I am Kim Kitsuragi from Precinct 57. This is an inter-district investigation, so joining me from Precinct 41...
What? I have no idea what that means. What is this? A joke to you? Is this what you get when you call the police now? This guy? We've been waiting for a week here.
Sir, I understand your concern, but we are here to do a job. And for us to do it, I need you to stay calm.
One thing about Kim is not only is obviously we have the spirit to corp really high, but also he's just like, yeah, whatever. I mean, he's like concerned about your mental state, but he starts to like you, and you just don't be afraid to say the weirdest stuff ever.
Yes, of course.
I know it took us a while to arrive at the scene, but it also took you a while to call us. It was you who placed the call, correct?
No, I only just got here. It was probably Sylvie who called you. She usually works the bar here. I'm only temporarily taking over her duties.
Do you have her number?
As a matter of fact, I do.
You said you just got here. From where? Are you a local?
What? Of Martinez? No, I live in Jamrock. I only sometimes come here to keep an eye on the place. This is just one of the many, many cafeterias I manage.
But you still know your way around, yes? In case we need directions.
Yes, I know where some things are. But as I said, I don't live here. I just used to work here. And I'm not going to start working here again, if that's what you think.
I didn't imply that. Detective?
So basically, you probably saw, again, the little prompts of, like, logic. You can scroll up and see what you have said before. Little prompts, authority as well. You can see, this is an example of me seeing authority in another person and how they've affected. It just gives you extra bits and pieces. Sometimes it's just more extra information to kind of enrich the conversation, but often you can act on seeing these kind of things as you've seen a few times already. Right, so I can also interrogate him a little bit. There's so many branching dialogue options. Like, some of these dialogue options are even different for me now than when I first did it because of the different stats. I did skip it a little bit. But for example, I can go through this conversation again. And didn't go well. Normally gives me a number. Did I get the number before? Fair enough. I think you might have not given me a number. So I skipped out on missing the number because I didn't have a high enough skill in something. So basically, this is where I have to wear him money. This is why I'm really excited. My horrific necktie is now talking to me. And that's because I have Inlaid Empire, so it's another voice in my head. That's really exciting. I didn't realise that until I started my game the other day. And I was like, ooh, Right, so you can do this. You fail it, a bad thing happens, so just as an FYI. Real is the money, by the way. Real. I haven't tried this one before, actually. So I can use my authority. I didn't realise. That's cool. So I didn't realise you can lower that. I've never tried that avenue before. So basically, because I was like, be a bit leery with him, and I can, and Kim just backed me up. I thought he'd be a bit weirded out by it. That's very cool. That's very cool. 1 second. Oh, this is a good useful thing actually, because this is going to prompt this little section here. And again, you see the way it prompted my encyclopedia? Certain skills will prompt these kind of extra thoughts in your head. So when that little circle around you and it starts something flashing, that's a thought in your head, or you're noticing something. So it's very useful and encouraged to act upon these. There we go, so I've got a thought gained. Right, okay, this is the last thing I'll show you. So basically, alongside your skills that you have here, and you have experience, and once I can push something. I'm really liking High in Night Empire, because my tie is my friend, and I'm suspecting that I'm going to feel very guilty about taking it off, because it's going to become like me, Kim, and my tie, which I really, really like. And I'm going to check it should pay for damages. So yeah, it doesn't actually tell me. I think it was like 70. Or did he wipe off 7 or did he pay 30? I'm going to check. Neat. Anyway. So basically, these are thoughts. So what I can do is I can internalize this. It gives me a buff to my encyclopedia, which is very handy. And it takes 6 hours and 5 minutes of in-game time. And once this is finished, it'll give me extra bits. So more buffs to certain skills, or, you know, intellect, encyclopedia, or like more actual stats, which is quite handy, or does other things as well. You get lots of these. You have 3 slots, and instead of spending experience point in these, you can actually spend an experience point in unlocking another slot. I'm pretty sure I've never actually done it before, so I don't know if you unlock one or the entire row. I'm going to do it a bit more now, because once you finish these, you get, like, they're worth it for the time it takes, because you end up getting, like, buffs to loads of stats. It's quite cool. But these are all the little thought cabinet bits that you can get. Obviously, because they're not in white, I can't select them because I haven't unlocked them. A great example is Ace's High is if I high-five Kim after a certain event, you get a chance to kind of internalize that thought a bit more. And yeah, it just adds an extra layer to building your character. Right, anyway, I'm going to leave that there. A bit longer than I thought, mainly because the skills part took ages, but I wanted to be thorough. Yeah, this game is incredibly cool. I think it's just on PC for now, to my knowledge, though I might be wrong. But I wouldn't be surprised if it does eventually come to other platforms. Actually, I'm just going to literally just check now. I think it's just on PC. Oh no, so it's actually on PS4, Xbox One as well, which is great. So if you've got a console, you can absolutely play this. I believe it's coming to the Switch eventually. I could see this being quite a fun game to play on your Switch. I will get it if it ever drops. Yeah, so hope you guys found that handy. Obviously I wanted to do the skills first because of the people who just wanted to learn about the skills, but obviously I wanted to show you exactly how you interact with the world and how just kind of changing a few stats completely flips your experience in the game. And it's a long game as well. If you want to do everything, you're looking at about kind of 50, 40, between 40, 45, maybe around 50 hours or so, if you want to kind of do everything. So there's a lot of game here. Anyway, as always, follow me on Twitter at norespawns. I will have more videos up soon, obviously. I'm going to do another long dark video. People seem to really like that. And I'll be doing another Fallout video soon too. And whatever else takes my fancy. But until that point, you guys enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the rest of the decade. And I'll speak to you lovely people soon. You take care.